Alright, I'll cut in here. So, you notice the difference between this bushing and this bushing. Can you spot the difference? This bushing is a lubrication bushing. This bushing is a sealing bushing. The sealing bushing went here on the aft side, and the lubrication bushing went forward. Notice on the Durabond version, you have a forward half that's lubrication, and you have the back half, which is sealing. So just line up your lubrication port. Make sure the side that does not have the oil groove is facing rearward. This plant also has bushings that are, you know, placement specific or order specific in terms of where they go. This one is a lubrication bushing here, this bushing in the back. And the front bushing is a sealing bushing. This is the exact opposite of the little reverse drum. So, sealing bushing, lubrication bushing. So, oil groove faces rearward. Note this is flush, this bushing here, and this bushing installs what appears to be about 3/8 or so of an inch from the deck surface there on this radius. Not budging. To the press. So when you're working on a planet like this, and it's got a real wide opening here and a relatively narrow inner diameter, you do kind of run the risk of putting too much press force and stress on the structure here, especially the base. So you don't want to simply flip the planet and stick it on the press plates and then go at it with the press. You want to support this area here and have this area kind of take most, if not all, the load. So I'm going to use Miller MB 990799, and I'm going to turn it up like this, and then flip this whole thing over. Going to separate the press plates so that we can have space for the bushing to pop out. But this will ensure that all the stress is placed there on the inner diameter as opposed to being distributed, because I don't want this area here to potentially face fracturing because there's just too much force on it. Alright, we're ready to go. And I apologize, I know the light is horrible. I mean, it is super harsh. Got the sun pretty much shining right into the shop directly. It's late in the day, so unfortunately that's kind of the case. So I'm going to start pressing it out. I may have to stop and readjust, just depending on where that collet is in relation to the opening. And what I'm going to do, like last time, is I'm going to prioritize holding these things up and let the collet and the bushing fall to the ground. So you hear that? That bushing was in there, okay? That's just simply the bushing finally becoming dislodged with enough force, probably close to or at 20 tons. Alright, well I guess I didn't have to actually hold it. I didn't think it would fall that quickly. So hopefully we wouldn't make a mess of anything or break anything. So I'm going to have to step into the shadow. I'm going to just move the camera a little bit further back in the shop so we can take a look at it. With those old bushings out, we can now go ahead and install the new Durabond one-piece bushing. So we have a lubrication half and a sealing half. The lubrication half is going to go facing the rear, to the rear. Basically the exact opposite of the one-piece bushing in the low reverse housing. So I'm going to be using Kenmore J34849 to actually install this thing. And all you really need to do, beyond what I just mentioned, is line up your little lube hole in the planet with the lube hole here in the bushing. And it's pretty good size, so you have some margin for error. So sealing bushing front, lubrication bushing rear. Don't be afraid to index your bushings either. So if you're a little concerned about being able to line up the hole correctly, and maybe you gotta travel a good bit ways into the bore, just go ahead and make an indexing line from the lube hole that you need to align to the deck surface. And just double check it, then go ahead and install the bushing when you're ready. Alright, let's go ahead and check it. So I did put a little sandpaper here on the journal. Looks like it could stand to use a little more. In fact, let me go over it real quick again with 1500 grit. Okay, we want these surfaces mirrory smooth. So it's a little bit tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to polish this journal here until it's no longer tight, because these bushings you can't really polish. Okay, they're coated, and if you polish them you'll take the coating off, and that defeats the whole purpose of having Teflon coated bushings. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll check it again after a bunch of sanding takes place. All right, let's try it again. I went at it with 1000 grit sandpaper for a little while, then I finished it off with 1500. So now I'm going to install everything as it would be if we were reassembling this thing in the transmission. So put the bearing. Alright. Of course, I'm doing before I'm thinking, so let me move this over to where there's a hole in the bench, and then we'll go ahead and see if we can install that hub and see how it spins. All right, and when you do this, do not use any kind of lubrication. No lube, no transmission fluid. You just want the bushing and the workpiece or workpieces to spin nice and free. Still a little tight going in, but it's not too bad. I mean, keep in mind, this hub isn't empty in reality. There is, bearing and other things there between it and this hub. So I'm going to give that shaft, maybe 1 to 2 more rounds of sanding, and then I'll retest it. Okay, that feels perfect. So that's what you want. Absolutely zero side play, but it spins nice and free. Okay, and I'm supporting the hub with my index finger just because I know that it's gonna sit a little bit further up than it is right now if I just let it, go all the way to the bottom, given we have, just a couple planets and hub on the bench. Okay, these Durabond bushings fit like gloves, literally. So if you try to, enter at an angle, and I'm way exaggerating here, but if you try to enter the workpiece at an angle, then you're going to know it. It's going to hang up on you right away. Whereas the standard bushing kits, most of them from the aftermarket, are a little bit looser on the tolerances. So consequently, yeah, it's easier to seat them and you don't have to do as much sanding, but the downside is the fitment is not perfect like it is with these bushings. Alright, now we'll remove and reinstall the bushings in the hub. So I indicated the depth on each side, so the hub side's 5/16, and then on the spline side you have 1/8, and I forfetched the marker, but it's 1/8 of an inch. So you're going to need to remove this bushing first using your puller, and then once that bushing's out of the way, then you got to take the same puller and you got to kind of situate it in here and then expand it. So because these collets use 10mm sockets, or require a 10mm socket, that's what I have here, and the 3/8 sockets are not deep enough as far as the socket end itself, so I got to use an impact socket. So use a typical chrome deep socket, and it's just not deep enough. So just be aware of that. So we're going to press it out from this end. Alright, once again, go ahead and support the workpiece with some sort of intermediary that allows you to have all of the press force concentrated here on this reinforced portion of the hub. You don't want to have all that stress on this relatively thin sheet metal or whatever it is. So we're going to be using these two tools to drive it out. It's a Kenmore J. I don't know if you're going to see this, but J9510-2. I don't know exactly what it is, but it works perfect for a lot of what I do here. And then you have another tool, J9510-3. I think these are actually piston wrist pin remover tools. I believe that's what they are now that I'm thinking about it. I need to get like a, I don't know, some sort of either mat or cushion bag below the press because stuff keeps going all over the ground. All right, let me get you in better light. I'm not sure who makes these bushings. RGB. I'm trying to make that out. Yeah, it says RGB on it. Maybe you could see it better than I can. It's the bushing number, bushing identifier. This bushing is original to the transmission. Like, that's what the factory installed. No way in hell that that thing is as hard and fast as that was in this shaft. No way that that was replaced 3 years ago. I mean, it sounded like a gunshot when it finally broke free. And you would have been here for a month of Sundays trying to yank that out with a slide hammer. Alright, now we'll go ahead and yank that one out, and then we will install the new Durabond bushings. Alright, same tooling involved, except I got one other piece there, just because it's shorter. I mean, you could put whatever, doesn't matter. If you want to know what this is, it's a Ken Moore tool. I'll have to get it after everything's out of the press. But again, you want to make sure that you have the tool supporting the workpiece, you know, right over there in the reinforced section. And other than that, just press down. I mean, this bushing may want to protest as well. You may hear a loud bang. Again, for bushings that haven't been dislodged in, you know, 15, 20, 30, 50 years, that's normal. Okay, you got some protesting going on. You're going to be at this for quite a while, so, you know, I mean, we got nearly a foot of tunnel to get this bushing from the splined end to the exit. Ah, and there it goes. Ah, maybe not as far as I thought. Alright, cool. So that tells me that the inner diameter here must narrow a little bit. It came right out. So the tool is Kent Moore J25019-2. Again, this tool is not as critical. You could use whatever there. So as I suspected, there is a transition zone. I'm going to see if I can put some light in there so that you can see it. So you can see where the witness marks are for the bushing, and then you can see further, you know, down in the shaft toward the direction of the hub where it widens. So I didn't know that because when I first, you know, my first 68 RFE, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I replaced the bushings in this hub here. And I didn't replace the pump bushing because I bought a reman pump just like I did this time around. And I didn't replace the bushing in the input shaft. So, I mean, it was 1.5 years ago. I mean, I've done God knows how many transmissions since then, so it's all kind of coming back to me as I'm doing this. But anyway, if you're wondering why I didn't know that, that's why. I've only done one other one of these, and I did not replace these bushings. So this one obviously has to go in first. And with respect to your driver, you want to make absolutely sure that there is play between the bushing and the support portion of your bushing driver. Because I got another one here, this fits, but it's a little bit snug. And so when this goes into the bore, I mean, it's going to shrink a little bit. So this is where it goes. And yep, it clearly widens because this journal is, well, wider. So this should drop in all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can install it. Just like that, so I know it's square. Alright, back to the press. So there's about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches worth of travel that this thing has to negotiate in that bore before it comes to a stop. Now, I'm wondering if there is a hard stop that'll, kind of prevent it from going too far in. I'm not sure. It looked like there might have been when I took a look at the splined end just before I, put everything in there. So we'll see what happens, but I'm probably going to check it periodically just to make sure I'm not overshooting myself with it. Alright, to hell with this, I'm going to go back to the bench with it. Alright, I think that this one is good. I mean, it looks pretty much identical in terms of the spacing between the bushing and the, end of the bore there compared to the original one. And that fits like a glove. Alright, last bushing. On this one anyway. You still have to do that bushing in the output shaft. Alright, for the front facing bushing, it's 5/16. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I made a little mark there with a Sharpie. It's 5/16 down. I mean, I know I'm being way anal about this. It's not necessary. I mean, if it's not exactly to the same depth as the original one was, that is not the end of the world. You just don't want to be too far off, then you'll have issues if you are, but that just helps me kind of level set and get my bearings, so to speak. Get my bearings on the bushings. Alright, let me get it set and we'll resume. So I think it just so happens that the height of the bushing driver itself is roughly the height or depth, if you will, equivalent to the depth that this thing needs to go. So I'm going to just keep driving this down until I come to a hard stop with this driver, and we'll see where we're at. I don't see my little dot, so we have roughly about 1/4 inch or so left to go, I think. Actually, I do. It's literally right there. You can see it, just the very, very top of it poking out. I'm literally going to go a quarter of a stroke further in, and we'll call it good at that point. But I imagine that if you wanted to stop now and just use you know, the transition line between the bore and the bevel, you could do that too, wouldn't be an issue. Fits like a glove. Alright, gotta work these bushings over just a little bit, or not bushings, journals. So, given we already have confirmed fitment, all I'm gonna do is, real quick, I don't know, 10-15 reps of 1500 grit for each journal. Just to knock the glaze off of them and make them presentable. Alright, so last bushing in the gear train is this bushing right in here. So, no big deal to get this out. You just need to be careful of the captured bearing, that's all. I would definitely not recommend you go at this with a chisel unless you got a really, really long chisel and you are really, really, really good with the chisel. So again, this is a perfect example of why you want a blind hole puller set. I don't know what the official dimensions are on these things. If I can, I will annotate the video at the beginning with them, and you know, this way you know. Okay, so I'm right at the inner diameter, so I'm going to back it off. That's perfect. So it's engaging the bushing without engaging anything else. That's what you want. Alright, let me wrap that out of there, and then we'll go ahead and install the new one. Hopefully this bushing is not as stubborn as the ones in that shaft, because if so, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to actually make an adapter to use my real heavy slide hammer. Oop. Sorry about that. Alright, that was relatively painless, which is good, because if it wasn't, we might be stuck. at least until I can make an adapter for you know, that collet hookup. No bearings were harmed in the extraction of that bushing, so it's good news. I will have to eyeball it and clean it out if there's any kind of bushing material, you know, just bits and pieces of the old bushing. But it is fairly intact coming out, so hopefully I won't have to do too much in the way of cleanup. Alright, sun's finally fully behind the mountains. It's going to set soon, so luckily this is the last bushing I'm going to deal with today. So all you're going to do is install it such that the top of the bushing is flush with that parting line between the bevel and the bore. That's basically it. Alright, you don't have to support this thing. I mean, it's a solid piece of steel. So just make sure that you have a driver that's appropriate. And when I'm done here with all the bushings, I'll go ahead and you know, give you dimensions on the drivers that I've been using. This aluminum set specifically. It is available. I forget what it's called, but you know, it or a set identical to it are readily available on places like eBay. I want to check progress real quick. Getting there. Like maybe 1 to 2 full strokes. And that should get it home. Maybe 6. Maybe 6. It's like it's about maybe 25 or 30 thousandths just above the lip. And it recentered itself again. Okay, like I said, I'm being real picky here because this bushing is deeply recessed. I don't want any recriminations from the planet that's going to go there or whatever's going there. Sun gear. Alright, let's go back to the bench. Alright, that feels perfect. Yeah, that's absolutely money. So I gotta clean up the board down there. and then I'll move on to the input shaft. All right, now we're ready to install the input shaft bushing. This is the last of the bushings that we're going to install in this transmission. If I have time, I'll go ahead and remove the stator bushing and install another one. I think that stator is perfectly fine. In fact, I think the pump is good. I think the loose cooler filter was actually the root cause behind why this transmission failed in the way that it did. So anyway, get this as square in the bore as you possibly can, and then start pressing just like anything else. Alright, it just installs flush with the surface. Now, that's basically it. Fits perfect. It's getting late, it's getting dark, so I know that it's going to be difficult for you to see, but it fits in there like a glove. Alright, let's go back to the bench and recap. Alright, finally, the end of the road when it comes to the bushings. All the bushings that I intended to install into this transmission and all the parts have been installed into their respective components, and all of them fit like perfectly. So very happy with that. I would say if you are going to tackle this part of the job yourself, figure at least 2 hours if you're doing it for the first time. That's how much time I have into this job. Now if you count in all the filming and editing and all that stuff, well, it's a lot longer than that. It's damn near a full day, but that's just, most of that's camera driven. So anyway, hope this was, if nothing else, educational and useful for you. I don't imagine this is entertaining for anybody to see, but if you need a really good idea, or you want to understand what it takes to remove old bushings and reinstall new ones into these 68 RFEs, this is a good video for that. I mean, it shows you basically every step in the process other than the pump stator bushing. And if I have time, I will do what I can to film a separate video, maybe a part 2 on that, because we do have that extra Durabond bushing. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Greatly appreciated. If you made it this far into the video, like literally from the beginning to the end, extra special thanks, because I know that these aren't the most popular, but I figured it would be a good resource for at least one other person out there that's trying to tackle every aspects of a rebuild on one of these transmissions.